The Friday morning rant with Shane Halfyard contains adult themes and adult content and possibly some adult language. I'm not going to normally start this off with a joke. Welcome to the Friday morning rant. I'm Shane Halfyard. It is Friday, May 24th, 2019. Normally I goof around and, just have fun with this podcast. And and I generally will. But every once in a while, a topic that's very serious will come up, and it's something that I don't think I should be clowning around with. Can I guarantee that I'll be fully serious the whole time? Probably not. That's just the way I handle uncomfortable situations and uncomfortable topics. But bear with me on this. This is a doozy, and let's get through it together. Anyway, I'm talking about domestic abuse. Right? A lot of people, don't realize that this is still going on to this very day. Right? And there are various forms of domestic abuse. Right? Well, there's various forms of abuse, but we're going to talk about in the domestic format for now. One of the forms is emotional abuse. This is when you're being put down, told you're not good enough, that you're ugly, stuff like that, but also they can threaten to harm you or themselves, like, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself. Make them feel guilty when they refuse sex, or, in some cases, threaten immigration on them if they are from another country. Now, that type of abuse is one of the hardest forms of abuse to prove, okay? Because when it comes to legal actions, it's hard to take any legal action against someone who's emotionally abusing you. I guess the best thing you can do is recognize it and leave. Some people just can't leave. Some people can't leave that. Some people actually, their self-esteem and their self-worth is so low that they can't leave this situation because they believe this. They believe they're not good enough. They believe that they deserve this kind of treatment, right? I was in a relationship similar to that, where a woman threatened to, she threatened to cut herself if I left her, or kill herself if I left her. And she was talking like that a lot. Because we were not in a good relationship, and we needed to separate from each other. And I left, right? And this is where my immaturity came in. I didn't say this to her, and I'm glad I didn't say this to her. But I was with a group of friends, my fellow wrestlers on the wrestling team at the time. And it was about 2 months later, and we saw her walking down the street. And I leaned in, I said, that bitch. I said, she threatened to leave. She threatened to kill herself if I left her. I held up my end. Why is she still here? And they all had a good laugh. Now, looking back, I regret that statement. Keep in mind, I was a teenager, and I thought it was funny. And, if it was presented in a comedy situation, it could be funny. But no, that wasn't funny. And I shouldn't have said anything like that. And I regretted it. And I did. And I do now. But back then, I, thought I was freaking brilliant. But the other part of immigration. Now, immigration, for those who are foreigners, will be like, oh no, I'm going to be deported, blah, blah. Well, no, you can't be deported just because you're not with that person, okay? Like, you got to understand that. I mean, I know people, you might be new to the country, but it doesn't work that way, okay? So these are the type of people you got to get away from. And emotional abuse can come from women and men, all right? These are all things that your partner can both, can be both women and men. I mean, a lot of times it's focused on women, And that needs to stop. The men need to be taken care of as well. But for now, let's just focus on women. I'm going to talk about what men can do in another show. Okay? So if you find yourself in this situation, the first thing you need to do is recognize it. All right? If you're being emotionally abused, you need to sit down and recognize it. Then you need to ask yourself, why are you tolerating it? And then you need to talk to them, tell them what they're doing, right? Because if you want to salvage the relationship, this relationship could be worth salvaging, and sometimes they can be salvaged. Then you got to talk to them. And if they refuse counseling or help, then you got to leave. And ladies out there, I know that by this time, if you've put up with it for a while, that you believe you've invested your time, that you love this person, that this person is very important, he's all-encompassing to you, but it isn't healthy for you. And it isn't healthy for him. He needs to learn that this is not acceptable, right? And maybe you walking out and leaving and becoming stronger that way, focusing on you, focusing on making yourself happy, focusing on bettering yourselves in any way, shape, or form, might show him that what he's doing is wrong, right? May not, but it might. But the most important thing is you don't worry about that. You worry about you, and you get out of that situation, right? Another common form of domestic abuse is sexual abuse, okay? We all pretty much know what that is. It's unwanted sexual touching of any kind, okay? Any kind. And it's like, if you're with someone, okay, and, if you're married, we'll say married. We'll go with married for now, right? Women, you're married, it doesn't mean he can just have sex with you, okay? You can still be raped in a marriage. Make no bones about it. You can, okay? It's just, it's a terrible situation. I understand that, okay? But other forms of sexual abuse, this is unwanted touching, whatever, all that stuff. We all know the basics. But the other forms is using sex as a weapon, all right, or a form of punishment. Now, I don't know how often this happens to men, like that men do it, but I know that there are a lot of women out there that will use the sex as a weapon. I.e., if you don't do this, I'm not having sex with you tonight. That is abuse. That is sexual abuse. Hate to break it to you, but it is. All right? If you refuse sex from your partner consistently, say over months, right? Say you had a very hot and passionate sex life, and then all of a sudden you just stop. You don't want to have sex anymore. And your partner is still the loving, caring, good partner that he or she may be, and you're still refusing them. Well, that is a form of abuse. Okay? It really is. I understand that you may not see it that way, but it is a form of abuse. Withholding sex from your partner is a form of abuse. Now, ladies, I'm not saying that every time your man walks into the house and says, drop trow and spread them, that's what you got to do. Okay? That's not what I'm saying. That's not how this works. But, you got to have a legitimate reason for not wanting to have sex with your partner, right? You don't want to turn your partner away, either he or she, right? Because what that does is it causes that person to feel ashamed, ugly, unwanted, unneeded, and then sometimes suspicion arouses, okay? Sometimes, they may think, oh, well, if she's not getting it from me, she might be getting it from somewhere else, or if he's not getting it from me, he might be getting it from somewhere else, and then it just becomes a big ball of suck, and you don't want to get involved with that. I've talked about this story on my vlog, okay? But I'll talk about it here, right? Someone I know called me up, and she was telling me that her husband of so many years, they're middle-aged, sat her down and said, if we don't start having a fun and productive sex life, I'm going to leave you. right? He just flat out said it. I'm gone. And she goes, don't you think that's just he's an asshole, right? And she was putting him down. And I said, look, I'll answer this question if you answer my questions. I said, first of all, when he asks for sex, is he rude about it? Is he like, bitch, bend over? Or how is he approaching you? She goes, well, no, he's always very nice and he's very romantic. He takes me out for dinner and he's always sweet to me and he's never really mean about it. Okay. Well, have you thought about maybe you need some counseling? There could be something emotionally wrong between the two of you, or there could be something physically wrong with you. And she goes, no, yeah, he brought that up and I'm not doing it. So you're not going to see a counselor or a doctor? She said, no. Well, how long has this been going on? She goes, about 8 months. He can do better, I said. She goes, what? And she was mad at me. I said, no, you don't understand. There is something going on with you, either physically or emotionally, that you need to address that's causing this problem. It is not normal to just stop having sex, after being together for so many years. A lot of people say it is, but it isn't. All right? Sexual contact enforces the bond of marriage and of any relationship. So if you're having a positive and fun and wonderful sex life, that will lead to a positive and fun and wonderful relationship. It's that simple, people, because it's not just a physical connection. It is the emotional and spiritual connection between two people. All right? So I told her that could be hormonal. It could be psychological. You need to see someone. Well, she called me up about a month or two later, and she said that, me telling her to get help was the best thing I could have done, because she got the help. It turned out it was a hormonal imbalance because she just finished menopause, and it was just a simple application of cream. And after several weeks, she started having a bit of some drive back, and things started getting better. And now, that was a couple of years ago. Now they're still quite happily married and doing quite well. Pardon me. So, yes, withholding sex is sexual abuse. Using sex as a weapon, as an i.e. a bribe, is sexual abuse. Now, let's cover that gray area there, okay? My wife, in a playful gesture, said for every 20 pounds I lose, we can cross one thing off my fantasy list, right? That's not really using it as a weapon. That's just two couples having fun, making a game of me trying to lose weight. What I mean by coercion is like, if you do something like horrible for me, I will give you a blowjob. Well, then, that's just, you don't want to do that, okay? So those are all forms of sexual abuse. The main kind, of course, is like rape, unwanted sexual touching, but those other kinds that aren't being addressed is withholding sex, using sex as a weapon, using sex as a punishment, such as if you don't do this, I won't do that, and it is just forming a cycle of mistrust, hate between the two couples, right? Between the two couples. How many couples are we going on here? So for that, obviously, if it is rape or any unwanted form of sexual touching, you need to talk to somebody, okay? You need to talk to somebody, and you need to talk to them right away. Avoid taking a shower. Avoid changing your clothes. You need to get to a police office, get to the police station, tell them what's going on. Let them take the samples they need to take. I understand that will probably be very embarrassing, very humiliating, but you need to understand that those things are in your mind that's causing you to stop yourself from getting the help you need, right? Try not to view it as, this is a humiliating experience because I have to admit that this is being done and these people are looking at me and taking pictures of me. No, you look at it as, this is the way to get this guy, to stop this person from doing it to me or to anybody else ever again. This is a means to an end. Those people who are taking the samples they need, taking the pictures they need, taking your statement, they are not thinking less of you, okay? All what's on their mind is get the evidence they need, and if it's true, to get this guy locked up, put away. Oh my goodness, sorry. Okay? And that's the one thing you need to do. My advice also to parents out there, if you have children, to talk to them at a young age about sexual abuse. You don't want to go into too much detail, of course, because they're children. But what I was taught was tell them about how unwanted touching isn't right, that their body is their body and no one has the right to touch it without their permission. Tell them about how, the inappropriate areas that should never be touched are, under your swimsuit. Whatever your bathing suit covers, other people shouldn't be touching that. Okay? Another point of advice is, when children are involved, the person who's doing the abuse will threaten them or their parents. They'll say, oh, if you tell on me, I'm going to hurt your parents, or that you're going to get in trouble. Explain to them that those things won't happen. That this person cannot get you in trouble for them hurting you, from them hurting them. I have had this conversation with my kids multiple times. Okay? I didn't just do it one and done. I addressed it with my kids at about 3 or 4, and then I would address it again at about 7 or 8, and then I addressed it again at about 12 or 13. Because you got to keep an open dialect with your children. They and you have to update the conversation. Like my daughter Eleanor, she is 14 and she's beautiful. She looks like she's 19 or 20 years old. And I had a conversation with her because she's now on the internet. She's online, she's on Facebook. She does these things, Instagram, all kinds of social media. And I explained to her that if a man approaches her, who's a great deal older than her, and says things like, I think you're beautiful, we should go out. If they don't know your age, well, they're not automatically a bad person. They don't know the fact that, that you are 14. So that's how you first address them. You say, look, I'm sorry, but I'm only 14. I'm not interested. And then if they start saying stuff like, oh no, age is nothing but a number. I may be 21, but I think you're quite mature for your age. That is a guy who doesn't give a shit about you being mature for your age, I told her. I said, he's not thinking that, okay? He's thinking, okay, she's 14. She might be gullible. I'm going to hit that. And I explained to her that that's not the type of guy you want. I said, he's not respectful. Tell him to hit the bricks. And she'd send me conversations on Facebook of friends of my son Ken in the Philippines. They'd be in their 20s messaging her, and she told them to go away. And then she blocked them. So I'm quite proud of her for that. I'm very proud of her for that, and I'm very happy that she listened. A lot of parents think their kids won't listen, but your kids will. If you come at them in a calm manner, they'll listen. Okay? And a lot of women will think that people won't listen to them about sexual or domestic abuse of, physical or emotional. That's not true either. Right? There are tons of people out there that want to help you. And you just have to reach out. And I understand it's scary. And I'll talk about how I understand this in a little bit. Okay? I understand that it's terrifying. And that you have to reach out and get help. Okay? You do. That's the only way around it. Right? That's the only way. You've got to break free from it. It's terrifying. It's scary. Now, there are people out there, they constantly go into these relationships. They go into a relationship where there's someone that's physically or emotionally abusive to them, and then they break up with them and they find someone else that's emotionally and physically abusive to them. And there's a reason for that, okay? It's because that's your comfort zone. Right? That is the zone of comfort that you are used to. And since you're used to that comfort zone, you don't realize... Sorry, I'm trying to fix my desk here. It's distracting. You don't realize that that's not something you need to be in. Like, you need to find a girl that isn't the typical one, or a guy that isn't typically the type of person you date. right? Because the type of people you date obviously sucked. They were abusive. Right? I was in 2 emotionally and physically abusive relationships. Okay? And they were very toxic relationships. And then I met my wife, and she wasn't the type of girl I usually go for. Okay? But I started talking to her. You know, she messaged me online, and we started talking back and forth, and you know, I got to know her, and you know, it turned out she was in an abusive relationship. She was in a physically and emotionally abusive relationship as well. So when she explained to me her problems, and I explained to her my problems, we realized that, you know, maybe, you know, the same issues. We started talking, and we started building a bond. And because I went out of my comfort zone, she and I have been together 10 years, married for 5. There have been no physical hitting each other. We don't scream at each other. We don't yell at each other. We just sit down, we talk. Right? But it never would have happened if I didn't go out of my comfort zone. Right? Because my comfort zone was, you know, big boobs, big ass, and down to fuck. That was my comfort zone. Okay? That's what I was into. Because those 2 girls that I was in a toxic relationship would have sex at a drop of a hat. Right? And it was that simple. They were just... We literally could be in an argument. And one of my exes said, look, I don't care how mad I am at you. If you feel the urge to have sex with me, just do it. I won't say no. And I thought that was great at the time. At the time, I thought, well, this is fantastic. I'm not in a harmful relationship. But then when that particular person and I split up, when she moved out of the house, me and my son felt like there was a huge weight lifted off our shoulders. We felt, because we were literally walking on eggshells around this person. Okay? What people don't understand about those different types of abuse is abuse can happen in many different forms. Like, she didn't physically hit me, but she would calm me down, say I'm a bad husband, say I'm a bad this. We weren't married, but we were common law. And she would also, if she was mad, if she's folding her clothes, she'd fold them in an aggressive way that would make me uncomfortable. And that's all forms of control. Okay? Well, you know, when I got out of that comfort zone and found someone that was a lot different, I turned out to be a lot happier. So you need to consider that, right? Try going outside your comfort zone. If you only did, say, the alpha male type, which, by the way, alpha males don't really exist. They're just assholes. But if you only date the alpha male type, you know, go for someone who's shy. Go for someone who's, you know, not exactly what you used to be into. Try to reach out to them. You know, I mean, the worst case scenario is you go on a couple of dates and it doesn't work. Okay, there's nothing there. That's no big deal. That's what dating's for. Dating is all about building connections and seeing if there is something there or not, and that's what it's about. But my advice is try to go outside your comfort zone. Okay? Now, here's the big one. All right? Physical abuse. This seems to be the most common one. Hitting, kicking, biting, slapping, pulling hair, unwanted touching of any kind. That's what physical abuse is. We all know it. We all know it. We all hate it. It is terrible. It is terrifying. And usually physical abuse comes with other things, emotional and sometimes sexual. Okay? Usually physical abuse also comes with verbal abuse, which I categorize also as part of emotional. Now, this I know a lot about. Okay? A lot about this. Right? I've seen it firsthand. Alright, first of all, Mom, Dad, if you listen to this, I'm going to tell this story, but I'm also going to explain how it ended. Okay? So, I'm just letting it out. Just bear with me. Okay? Alright. So, how I know about this is my parents were going through domestic violence, right? My father used to hit my mother. And it got pretty bad. It got so bad one night that my mom went to the hospital. I think she got a couple stitches in her lip or around her lip. Keep in mind, this is all coming from when I was 6 years old, 7 years old. Okay? So my memories could be tainted with fear and time. But yes, she definitely went out to the hospital. And then we end up going to Women in Transition Home. Okay? Transition House, for short. There were a lot of factors that caused his domestic violence. Okay? And you need to understand that. Like, you understand that this type of violence, this type of abuse, this doesn't happen out of the blue. We have to analyze the reasoning behind it. Always. There are some, feminazis out there that'll say, no, there's no good excuse, there's no reason, this doesn't happen, we don't have to do that, blah, blah, blah. And then it just takes everything out of the equation, so it's just, he's all at fault, and he's a piece of shit, and that's it. Well, no, you can't do it that way. It doesn't get solved that way. The issues do not get resolved by that form of thinking. Okay? There are factors that took place in my parents' situation. One, age. All right? When I was born, my mother was 16, my father was 17. Their brains aren't fully freaking developed yet. They are not ready to have kids. Right? And yet there I was. So their youth played into a factor. Alcohol played into a factor. My dad and mom, they like to drink. They like to drink a lot on the weekends. They don't do it. This is when they're younger. I'm not, now the totally different story, but when they were kids, they were still trying to be kids. Right? Drugs was another factor. Okay? My parents liked to smoke dope. That was one of the things they liked to do. They used to take me to their drug dealer's place and run in, grab their stuff, and run back out. They wouldn't leave me in the car alone. One of them would stay with me. But, I was there. Sha-la-la-la. So that's another factor. Okay? Another factor is I know for a fact that my father was physically abused as a kid by his parents. But back then it wasn't called abuse. It was just called correction or discipline. But it was abuse. Okay? The things that he was taught, how he was raised, he thought that was the way to raise a kid and to be in the family, because he would watch his father strike his mother. And that is why it's called a cycle of abuse, folks. So the night that it ended, all right, we were living in a house on my grandfather's land. Okay? More of a shack. We needed a place to live fast. So my grandfather, I believe it was in the span of like 5 or 6 days, maybe a little longer, took a garage, a large 2-car garage, and made it into a small, loosely 1-bedroom house. Okay? Oh, they put the insulation up, the drywall up. They put in a furnace, propane furnace or oil furnace, sorry, and to heat it up. And basically, the living room was one big room, and what they'd use to divide it is they put a bed at the back of it, and then they put a couch. Okay, they put a couch. Kind of like that's the divider, right? So that was where my parents slept. And this little tiny room, it was so small that basically just my cot could fit in it. Okay? And then a little tiny kitchen, and then the living room, right? So it was really just, he did what he could, right? He did this to help my parents out so they could stay, save money, get a place, right? That was the whole plan. That's what it was. And my grandfather did that. So one night, I've already seen them get physical with each other multiple times. But one night I hear crying. Right? I go out and I see my dad, wailing on my mom. And then, I scream. I distract my father somehow. And my mother gets out. And she goes to my grandfather's place, which is literally like across the driveway. My aunt, I believe it was my aunt, took my mom to the hospital. Right? My grandfather came over and went right past my father and picked me up and carried me to his house. Right? I'm blatting, I'm crying, I am miserable. But he went right past my father. Didn't say a word to him. Just grabbed me and picked me up and carried me out of there. Right? Well, my mother came home that night to my grandpa's place and told me we're moving. The next day we went to Women in Transition Home. Okay? And we were there, I don't know how long we were there. Like I said, I was very young. We could have been there anywhere between, 2 weeks to 2 months. Very vague memories of it. I have memories of it, but time, I don't know how to explain it. Time just, I don't know how long we were there. Right? I'm not sure how long my parents were apart, but my mother told me that she told my father that he needs to get off the drugs. And once he's off the drugs, they can talk about getting back together. And I think it could have been 6 months to a year. Right? So we moved from transition house and we moved to another spot next to my grade school. And it was just a 1-bedroom place again. Just a small basement apartment. And eventually my father started coming around. And he got off the drugs. And my mom, she didn't date anybody during that time. She was, she made her getting well and focused on, she quit drugs. She got off the drugs. He got off the drugs. And he didn't just come right back in. Like, it was a slow process. They were, dating again for like a month or so. And then we moved back in together with each other. And as far as I know, because I'd lived with them again for another 10 years before I moved out, they have never been physically violent to each other ever again. Right? It just, they worked it out. So it is possible to work this out, right? Now, they didn't see counseling. They didn't see a shrink or a family therapist. And maybe they should have, but they didn't, and it worked out for them. They've been together since, my mom was 16. My father is now 60, and my mother is now 59. So whatever they did, it worked for them. Right? They don't hit each other. They don't hurt each other. They don't, they don't do those things anymore. Right? In fact, my father approached me one time when he was, I don't know. This was a few years ago, and he called me up and he said, "Son," he goes, "I gotta tell you something. If they had had me when they were in their 30s, they never would have laid a hand on me, right? So, and things would have been different." And I said, "Dad, I know. Don't worry about it," because he thought that maybe I was harboring some kind of, resentment towards it. I'm not. Me and my parents are now in a good relationship. They weren't good parents when I was growing up, but they had their own issues and baggage. And as I got older, I think I was about 15, 16 when things started getting really, a lot better for us. Because then they were in their 30s and they mellowed out. I was easier to handle, and we started getting along. But my point is, if you are in any kind of abusive relationship, the first thing you need to do is get out of that situation. Now, is it a lost cause? Do you give up on that person? Possibly. But if you feel it's worth trying, if he's willing, or he or she are willing to go to counseling, and you're willing to go to counseling, and you're willing to try to work it out and make things better for you guys, I say go for it. It can work. Like I said, my parents, they're top drawer now. My father is very ill now, so there are a lot of things he can't do, and he wasn't a person that expressed love easily. But one of the ways he always expressed love for my mother is anything she wanted him to do, he did it. Not a problem. Like my mother liked to feed when they lived in a house out in the woods, well, kind of wooded area. My mother liked to feed, have a squirrel feeder, bird feeder, feed the crows their scraps. But she would do it on their far end of the property, right? Not near their house, on the very, very far end of their property. And she had a table set up, and she'd put the bones and scraps there for the wild animals, and she'd set up stuff to feed the squirrels. But my father would literally dig a path in the snow for her every winter, right? As long as he could do it. So he expressed love for my mom in those type of ways. He went out of his way to make things better for her. They lived in an apartment for 10 years, and my mother said, I want to get a mini home. My dad didn't want to move, but they moved, right? Because she wanted to move, and they got a mini home. And they lived in that place for 10 years, and my mom wanted a house. My dad didn't want to move, but he moved, right? And those are ways he showed love. Like he would bend over backwards for her. And my mother would show love in similar ways. Her way of showing love was, whenever he came home, there was a hot meal ready for him. When, if she knew that he was having a hard day, she made sure that he was all right. Got him his tea, his beer, whatever she needed. No complaining, no nothing. She just did it. She didn't do it because she felt she had to as, the wife. She did it because she knew that he was having a hard day and things were tough on him, and she made sure to take care of him. Right? And that's one of those things that I always respected about my parents after they got past that, is that they showed each other love in various different ways. And that was wonderful. So that is how I know about domestic abuse, by watching it. And then I've been in relationships where I would get physically abused by one. One woman was, we were teenagers, and she was very physically abusive. In fact, I got found out from the doctor that if I got a really good shot to the head, that I could lose the rest of my eyesight. I'm legally blind, by the way, in case you don't know. And that would be the first place she'd try to swing for if she got mad at me. And I was walking away from her. I was ducking my head. I was trying to, because, I was raised, there's no good reason to hit a woman, blah, blah, blah. Then my mother saw it. My mother saw it, and she said right in front of her, she goes, Shane, what are you doing? I said, well, Mom, I'm trying to get away from her. She's, hitting me, and I can't hit her back, obviously, because she's a girl. And my mother grabbed my arm and turned me right around, looked at her. I'm 16, and I didn't know she could spin me like that, because at 16, I wasn't super tall, about 5'6", but I was about 190 pounds. I was in the gym a lot. And she goes, Shane, I don't care. She says, you don't let anybody hit you. And she's saying this in front of this woman, right? In front of this girl. She goes, if anyone hits you, you hit him back. She goes, don't hit her like you'd hit a man, but hit her back to defend yourself. Because if she can dish it out, she can take it. And all of a sudden, the physical abuse stopped. She realized that my mother was telling me this. So, the next day she never hit me. She just caught me down, and she put me down in other ways, but she stopped trying to hit me. And then the second relationship I was in, like I said, she was more verbally abusive than physical. In fact, I don't recall. I think she only hit me once. But yeah, she was just more emotionally and verbally abusive. She was emotionally abusive to me, and she was abusive to my son in various ways, not physically but emotionally. And she would come up with this weird shit, and she'd say it was in her child psychology books, and I thought she was smarter than me, so I listened. And then one day I said, this isn't making sense. So I started reading those books that she said these techniques were in, and none of them were in there. So I put an end to that. And then I tried to hang on because I found out that she was ill. She had OCD and possible bipolar, and I didn't want to leave her because she was ill. I wanted to, if we were going to break up, we're going to break up for other reasons. So I tried to hang in there. I tried to be supportive, and then one day she told me to either choose her or my son. I chose my son, and she was gone. And then I mulled around for a few months, I think about 6 months, and that's when I met my wife, and things went up from there. Now let's talk about what you can do. Okay? What can you do to get yourself some help? Right? Well, there is an abusive hotline you can go to. It's a website. It's www.thehotline.org. Okay? You can go to that site, and they have tons of information that can help you with your situation. If you are afraid to access your internet because of your spouse, there's also a toll-free number, right? The toll-free number is 1-800-799-7233, okay? So again, their webpage is www.thehotline.org. Their toll-free number is 1-800-799-7233. Another place you can go to is www.womenintransitionhouse.ca. And their phone number, if you're in the New Brunswick area, is 506-459-2300. So the website again is www.womenintransitionhouse.ca, and their phone number is 506-459-2300. All right. I am going to talk about my experiences in Transition House next week. I'm hoping to interview someone from Transition House, but if it doesn't happen, I'm still going to talk about my experience there. Keep in mind, this will be from the 80s. Things could be way different. That's why I'm hoping to get the interview. I hope that my story has helped you. I hope that the information has helped you. What little there was. I hope that the contact information helps you. If you are in an abusive relationship, get out of it. Okay? I understand kids may be involved, and that is that is all the more reason to get out of it. Okay? You need to end the cycle of violence. How I did it was I said I would never do this. Right? When I was there crying and with my grandfather at his house upset, I swore that I would never do this to anyone. And I upheld it. Right? And it wasn't easy because I grew up to be very angry. I was a very angry person for a long time. But I realized I was very angry, and I realized what road I was going down, and I did everything I could to fix it. And I'll talk about how I fixed it in another episode. Okay? So, that's all for today. Sorry it wasn't a fun video. Right? But I felt that this should be talked about. And I think it should be talked about from a man's point of view as well. And that is why I did it. Like I said, it's not the most fun episode that I would do, but I didn't start doing these rants to always have fun. I want to talk about real issues, real problems, and if I can help, great. If you got any good information on this video, please hit that like button. If if you feel anybody could use this information, share this video. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. All right, I'm really trying to make this channel grow, and it would be a great favor to me. It'd be wonderful, right? I'm already up to 10 subscribers, which is amazing because I had 6 for like the first, few months, and then all of a sudden, bam, I shot up to 10. And I know 10 subscribers isn't a lot, but I'm grateful for every single one of you. If you have a topic, a question, or a show idea, anything like that, please leave the comments down below. If you want to share your experiences, you will maybe do an interview and share your experience of domestic violence, either male or female. Again, leave a comment down below or contact me at shanehalfyard@hotmail.com, and I would be happy to hear about your experiences. That's about it for now. Until next week, take care of yourselves and each other.